Quasar Markets Live. You have Howard Greenberg, your host here. Going to take you through where we're at the day, and then we're going to watch a little video with Scott Bauer from Prosper Trading Academy where he explains the trader's mindset. I do think on choppy days like today, it's a good reminder that you have to really play the hand in front of you. You can't be stuck to either a fully bullish portfolio or fully bearish. You need to have a good mix of the two. You have to have the right mindset. You have to take some emotion out of the game. It's hard to do, especially when money is on the line, but it's very important. So as you can see up on the screen here, I've got a few things going on. We have trading view up here, and I have this is what I call my macro look here. I do have a combination of SPY, the S&P, QQQ, which tracks the NASDAQ. I have the dollar index, and I have the volatility, the VIX. S&P volatility is sometimes called the fear gauge. But this is just the way I like to see what's going on so far and get some quick answers. So what we had seen is the SPY had been moving up nicely. All markets had been moving up nicely here through pre-market, all the way through till about 11 a.m. when we started to get some negative sentiment out there, and we saw a drop to lows of the day. SPY got down to 542, but as you can see, it's now rebounded. We're trading right about in the midpoint of our daily trading range so far. Very similar for QQQ or the NASDAQ here. We made the nice run up to about 455, 24 here before retracing all the way down to 449.82, but now we're right back in that middle. And you can see on both of these that we've spent majority of the morning in that middle. We got a spike right up on open, and then we got the drop right there at 11, at 10. So now we seem to be returning back to the mean. So it seems like we're going to stay in a pretty close standard deviation so far. Haven't been able to see a breakout one way or the other. Dollar Dixie DXY, which tracks the U.S. dollar versus a basket of other currencies. We can see it's at about 101.614. I like to see it back down here towards that 101 level for Bitcoin and for some of the other speculative tech stocks to really take off. It's something, one of the indicators you tend to look at here is the strength of the dollar, because it can have a big play in there. And we can see after dropping most of the morning and through since about noon on Friday, the VIX had been, again, which is the volatility index of the S&P over a 30-day period, had been trending down. It did bounce back up a little bit, so at about 20.41. I really consider that 20 mark to be the midline on that, sort of where you're just we're not at a, it's sort of the mean point where we sort of stick to around that 20 point. So that's what we're looking at in those. Going to my daily chart here, or hourly chart, excuse me. And again, you can see SPY does have a decent amount of resistance above us here on the hourly chart that we can see pretty firmly in a descending linear regression on the hourly chart. Also, it did gap up this morning, but unable to break through the top of that linear regression. So from a straight TA analysis of this, you're looking for it to kind of take a move down back towards that 537.50 level probably. So just that strictly TA side of it. Looking at QQQ, very similar chart here, quite honestly. Here, though, you start to hit a little bit of resistance historically in that 457.40, 458.60 range you got to worry about also. But if you can break through that, we've seen that 458.64 level turn into good support, back here last week on Wednesday and Thursday. So if we can break back above that spot right here, We could see ourselves do some decent trading in that little spot between the resistance zone there and flipping this green into a support zone that happens a lot. So just what I'm looking at there. Dow Jones up nicely about 1.18% today. So, we are seeing the Dow with a nice move back up here. Trying to break through some light resistance right now. If it can get through here again, you've got some pretty decent spot here for it to get towards 41. We know which is recently at its all-time high of 41,585. So, one of the things that I think we're seeing is a little bit of the sky isn't falling and traders sort of stop. They basically come back and they're looking. Some guys are just bargain hunting. We saw the previous week was the worst week for the S&P in 2023. So some people are doing some bargain hunting. I think some people are getting a little bit more risk on. I think, like we said, there was some money sitting on the sidelines. We're seeing some of that come out. And we are seeing, some stock choosing, some pickings, winners and losers, short of showing up. On a macro level, Bitcoin not able to stay up above that 55,500 right here. Would really like to see it stay above that. Today, that would be a good spot to hang up above. Would be about 55.5. Would keep us in a nicely bullish area here. Do see some decent support starting to form in that 54,850 level. So we are seeing a little bit of support pull up here, a little bit higher. So giving us one level of support, as you can see, before we get down to what we had designated at that 53 level as the key support. So we are seeing that in general. In the early movers that we talked about earlier today, let's take a look. Boeing sort of sliding down since, that early morning news today that they had settled with the union. 34,000 employees in the Pacific Northwest signed contracts. So they did get a nice pump from that. We are seeing it retrace back through. And what I'm afraid of here is that this zone is turning back into resistance just above it here. That's going to give us trouble at that 163.32 area. So, you got to be wary. You got some support around 160.17, but still not a very bullish chart here when it comes to Boeing, in my opinion. Tesla had made a really nice move up, had been as high as 219.87 today. But taking out about the same area that we saw resistance last Wednesday. So very similar area here. But we saw a lot of resistance peak up. That's about where it got knocked down today. So right now, until we can break through that 219.67 and prove ourselves to be able to hold above it, that becomes the pivot point that I'm watching today there. NVIDIA nicely up 2 points. Again, another one that showed a lot of strength. Early hours took a little bit of a hit when everything took a hit. Some profit taking there in the 10 to 11 hours. But trying to work itself. Oh, just retook 105. So trying to get back to 105. Was as high as 106.55 earlier today. So, NVIDIA trying to get up. We did point out there is three levels, three different times that it's gotten rejected in the zone between 108.84 and 110 here. So 108.84 to 110 is the key resistance spot we're watching here again for pivot point type move. Take a quick look at AMD. AMD staying just above some support here. We got a decent zone in between 134.87 and 136.16 where we've historically seen a little bit of buy power. So let's see if that can push us up back up here on AMD. Intel still nicely up 1.64. Again, after taking a big hit there last Friday, it's been bouncing back nicely. But again, as you get up into that 1979 area, where it spent a decent amount of time last week, you're usually going to see some sell pressure in that area. So we want to be careful for the sell pressure that can come up as we approach that time frame. SMCI, let's take a look at that. Super microcomputers, the one we know that got hit by the short seller report. It's broken through its first sort of key pivot point, in my opinion, that was at that 396.50 area. So SMCI does seem to be breaking through and turning that. As you can see, this was a red zone. It's now turning green. So we are seeing resistance hopefully turning into support here. With that being said, though, we only got up to about 408. About 8 cents there worth of movement still before we'll see our next zone of resistance. And you can see that's the areas that we dealt with back here at the end of August, and then the area here at the beginning of September that we struggled with that. So that's SMCI. Take a look at Apple here. We know in 2 hours or so they will do their Apple Day. It basically tanked most of the morning after gapping up to about a high of 221.27 earlier today. It took basically a straight drop down until it found a little bit of footing here in the 11 o'clock hour. Had dropped as low as 217.05. Now down still about a half a point. So Apple, not a lot of excitement, it seems like. It will be fun to watch that at 1:30. It tends to move a lot if you watch a minute chart there for about the 10-15 minutes. When that starts off, you get a little bit of action. It's always fun to see what happens there. And then we get into some things that we were watching today. Some of our biggest movers of the day. Again, a great spot to find your biggest movers of the day is from our Quasar markets platform. It has a great U.S. market mover thing. So we pulled out SINT, which is Syntex Technologies, up about 105 now. They were up significantly more. It hit a high of 698 earlier today. These are those micro pumpers like we talked about. This thing normally does 1.86 million in volume. Today it's seen $50 million in trading volume, so literally 25 times its normal things. So wow, another one of those today was INBS, which is Intelligent Biosolutions, up about 58.86, made it as high as 3, now gave back about 250. So it definitely coming back down over here. Be interesting to see if the top of linear regression will sometimes give you a little bit of a line of support. So will that actually serve as a line of support to give that some more action here? Another one was Summit. I will say that Summit Technologies is actually a thesis basis, and part of this is based upon its cancer drug that topped Keytruda and some Chinese trials. So some positive news on health trials there. A little bit different than those micro pumpers. Another of the micro pumpers, though, is Relay Therapeutics. Again, this sucker shot up and right now is still flying 983. So this one's still pumping. Let's see, if it retraces back below what was its high over here of about 974, I think you got problems. So let's see what happens as it does it. This is a fun one playing out right in front of us right now. And again, what I'm looking at there is the previous pump high that we found back in July was about 978. So if it can get above that, we've seen these micro pumpers, they'll hit another whole level from there. You could see 979 turn into 12 pretty quickly. Get back into this range here. Have some resistance also, 1059. It's trying. It is definitely trying. So that's an interesting one playing out right in front of us. Another one that's playing out right now is Segmont Biosciences, up about 44% today. This one's running, and you can see again, it's got its last little resistance spot here that it's fighting at right now. There, it can break 371. You could see a runner here. Let's see what else we've got going on.